Come on, 7. There we go. Okay. We'll call this meeting to order.
Please rise. Oh, yes, this county commission meeting of Sumner County is now open pursuant to adjournment. God bless this country and this honorable commission. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Weatherford. Dr. Fleming could not be here tonight. As you know, ministry doesn't stop according to our schedules, and he had to be somewhere with his congregation tonight. So let's remember the Hawkins family in our prayers as this family mourns the loss of Jim, and our county mourns his loss as one of our, one of those outstanding people who always gave back to the community in 1,000 different ways. Let's bow our heads. Lord, we thank you for this evening and for this time together, and we pray for your blessings upon us tonight. We are honored to have our young people with us tonight from Sumner Leadership, and Lord, we pray for your blessings upon them as they close out the end of a school semester. We pray that you'll keep them safe and that you'll keep everyone safe, Lord, as we travel in this weather tonight. Lord, please be with our first responders and watch over them as well. Lord, we lift up the Hawkins family to you tonight and pray, dear Lord, that you will have mercy and grace upon them, that you will touch them as life begins to settle back down and they mourn the loss of Jim. Lord, we just pray that you will bless them and touch them and lift them up in every way. Bless us now as we meet. May we do so to your glory. It's in your precious and holy name we pray. Amen.
Please face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's check our roll.
The roll call is now open. Each commissioner, please record your presence.
Caroline Kruger, she's on her way. Okay. All right. Let me run through a couple of announcements, and then we'll get to our business tonight. I just want to do it before I forget about it. First off, I want to remind everyone that your headshots are in your mailbox. There's a flyer on your desk with information. Everybody needs to pick their headshot as soon as possible, so please do that. Also, Mr. Graves, Bethpage Christmas Parade, what time does it start on?
Mr. Chairman, it starts December the 21st, which is this Saturday. It starts at 1, start lining up at 11 or 12, and there'll be food and refreshments down at Dick Alexander's shop there where it starts.
Okay.
Y'all come on out.
All right. Thanks, Commissioner Graves.
Thank you.
All right. And let's see. Let's go now to Commissioner, let's see. Okay. Yeah. Next month, just a note, next month we will vote on a replacement for Mr. Hawkins on the school board. Ben sent out information about that process today. All right, let's see, we've had our pledge, we've had our roll call. We're moving towards our agenda. Is there a motion to approve our agenda? Motion made by Commissioner Foster. Second made by Commissioner Shell. Mr. Mansfield, you're in the queue.
Yes, sir. I would like to move that we have recognition of the public after the chairman's report.
Second.
Okay, yeah, that works. If there's no objection to that, we'll just go ahead and do our public recognitions before the, we'll do the report of the chair before recognition of the public. Thank you, Mr. Mansfield. All right, motion's been made to approve our agenda and seconded. See no one else in the queue. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Your minutes are before you. Let me, as we move into that, I know we normally move through that really quickly. I want to say that it's been noted in the minutes. I talked to Mr. Kemp earlier this week. In last month's meeting, I made a mistake. We had during our budget presentation, Commissioner Mo Taylor made an objection or called a point of order, and I said I wanted to hear what Commissioner Chris Taylor said, and then I would rule. And then we adjourned the meeting before I ruled. I talked to Commissioner Chris Taylor, and I talked the next day, and just so moving forward, we're all on the same page. The way I should have handled that was, once we moved outside the purview of budget, I think it was perfectly fine to talk about something that was going on in the budget committee. But once we started talking about plans and things like that, I should have cut off that conversation, and we should have just referred it to general ops to go to Ms. Shell's committee. So that's on me. Commissioner Taylor, I apologize for not ruling on that point of order. I should have, and that is reflected in the minutes now that I did not properly rule on that motion. But I wanted to just correct that record, Commissioner Taylor. Thank you. All right, your minutes are before you. Is there a motion to approve our minutes? Okay, motion made by Commissioner Graves, or second? Second made by Commissioner Mo Taylor. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, we're going to now go, your veteran service report is attached, and I would it's a pleasure for us to have the Honorable Senator Farrell Hale with us tonight. Every once in a while, our senator drops by and gives us information about what's going on, and Senator Hale, we're thrilled to have you tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the opportunity to speak to you tonight. First off, I want to thank you for a move that y'all made about 8-9 years ago when you appointed me as interim senator. Never dreamed that I would wind up serving as elected to this position, and it certainly has been an honor. I appreciate that very much. Those of you that were here at that time, the others, why, you've been kind to me, and I appreciate that. I want to talk to you just a moment, members and Mr. Chairman and members of the audience, concerning a budget amendment that I proposed concerning the Comer Barn on Nashville Pike. And let me first tell you where that thought process came from. It really comes from being a young child, young teenager, and then later as an adult, riding up and down Nashville Pike with my dad. And he would make comments about that barn, who had worked on that barn, and some of the details of that. And certainly throughout my lifetime, that has been a focal point. Go to the rock barn on your right, and then go a mile and turn right or turn left. That was a focal point that you gave directions off of. Not so much now, but at one time, that certainly was the case. So I made a budget amendment. I felt like that as I've traveled about and been in other counties, that there's been agricultural barns that have been used for different things. I have no intent of purpose or vision for that barn, but I just hate to see it fall down. And I felt like that there was enough historical value, at least to me, maybe not officially, but to me there was enough historical value there, that the state should be willing to have some investment if the county, if you, ladies and gentlemen, were interested in restoring that barn and maintaining that barn and finding a use or development for that. I have no vision for what that might be, and I have no intended purpose. Your collective wisdom, 24 of you, is certainly much greater than anything that I could come up with. And so I have no vision for what that use might be for that barn. But I felt like that it was beneficial for the state to be willing to invest along with the county. And so the budget amendment that I passed states this: matching funds for improvements to the barn. So there's two things that I want to mention there. One is matching. It does not actually state dollar for dollar, but the intent of that is that for every $2 invested, the state would invest $1 and the county would invest $1. It's not that the intent was not that the county would invest $1 and the state would invest $250,000. That certainly was not the appropriate match that going forward. Even though the amendment did not state a 1-for-1 match, that's the intent, and we certainly could go back and add that into that wording on that. As I've already stated, there's no intended use mentioned in that, except that is for improvements to the barn. If we don't do something, then the barn's going to fall down. And that's your decision. We on the state are just offering to help in that project. My personal thought would be, if we're not going to address the condition of the barn, then get a drag hoe out there and tear it down. You know, just that's the process that I personally would see going forward, but that's for your decision. I will mention to you that because state money is involved, there are actually 2 state agencies that will be following the money. The comptroller's office will be looking at that money and how it's spent, if it's spent, and if the intended purpose is, that money is used for the intended purpose. And also F&A, Finance Administration, would be following that, and that was the department that the money came through to the county. If you determine not to use the money, not to go forward with that, that's fine. But the state wants it back. You know, it's not free money, it's taxpayer money, and there's uses for that. I've been very involved with the Safe Baby Court, and certainly we could use that money for the Safe Baby Court. So you should be asking, so why didn't you put that money there instead of at this point in time? And here would be my response to that, is that the tourism dollars, as I've looked at the state budget, there's a lot of money that goes into tourism. And it's very easy to think, why don't we pull that money out of tourism? You know, let's take some of those tourism dollars and utilize those for something that we need now. Here's the problem with that. For every dollar invested in tourism, $11 returns to the state. So if I take 5 of those dollars out of tourism, then next year, not only have I lost those $5, I've lost additional dollars to that also. So there's a balance, and you know this, you do budgets. All of you are involved in the county budget process. There's decisions to be made, and how do you wisely spend this money? So I just wanted to come. There had been some conversation as to where did this come from, and why was this budget amendment put in? And it was not intended to put you guys on spot. That was far from the intent, but it was an offer that if you want to do something here, the state's willing to partner up to this amount of money. If you spend $200,000 on the barn, I'm just pulling a figure, then I would expect $100,000 from the state, $100,000 from the county, and a check returned to the state for $150,000. That is the process and the math that the state and the comptroller's office and F&A and that I would expect on that. So, Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity to come. Thank you, members of the commission. I appreciate what you do very much. You are right in the middle of serving people, and it's a great place to be, and I appreciate your willingness to serve. And again, I want to say thank you to the members in the audience and to those of you that allow me to serve in the capacity. Country boy come to town, never dreamed I'd be serving in this type of position, and it's an honor and a privilege, and I thank you for it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Hale. I want to commend you. Yeah, go ahead. Senator Hale, I just want to commend you because I've never had an issue where if we needed to talk to our state senator, you've always listened. You've done everything in your power to help us whenever you could. I really appreciate it. I was on a humorous note. I was wondering, you know, one time I got asked to fill in as an interim Sunday school teacher, and I did it for about 8 years. Do you ever feel like that when you're down there? Thank you, Senator Hale. We really appreciate your service. All right, we're going to move now to our certificates of recognition. I think Commissioner Wright is going to come now, and we're going to honor Officer Wes Martin.
Good evening, folks.
If Officer Martin would come up and his family, if y'all would join us. Sorry, Mr. Wright.
Come on, Wes. First off, on a personal note, I've known this gentleman for 16 years, and I've had the pleasure, and it has been a pleasure, my friend. This is a resolution honoring Detective Wes Martin. Whereas Detective Wes Martin retired on December 13, 2019, after serving his country in Sumner County with dedication and diligence for 37 years. And whereas Detective Wes Martin began his career in 1982 as a security specialist in the United States Air Force, and upon returning to civilian life in 1986, worked at the Sumner County Sheriff's Office, Hendersonville Police Department, then resumed his patrol duties in Sumner County. And whereas Detective Wes Martin was recognized as an expert in the field of domestic violence-related issues and served almost 20 years in the Sumner County Sheriff's Office Criminal Investigation Division, where his compassionate understanding was a tremendous help to countless victims of domestic violence, as he made them feel safe while guiding them through court proceedings and ensured that they received benefits and opportunities afforded to them. And whereas Detective Martin has served Sumner County eagerly and diligently to help solve homicides, rapes, burglaries, and other crimes, providing excellent leadership and guidance, and it is appropriate that we commend him for his unwavering dedication and hard work to keep our county safe. And
So moved.
so moved.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Commissioner Wright's made a motion. Ms. Eccles seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
It has been a pleasure, brother. You enjoy it, baby. You deserve it, buddy.
Mr. Martin, congratulations, and thank you for your service. We really appreciate it tremendously. All right, Mr. Hinton's going to have the floor next. And I think if we could have Mr. Thompson, if he could come forward.
And the two commissioners from his district.
And the two commissioners from his district, y'all come on up. We get the whole family, too, if y'all want to come up. Evidently, Miss Wanda needs to come on up, too. Not to put you on the spot.
Anywhere, it's your night. Stand anywhere you want to. Yeah. Yeah. Road superintendent needs to be up here, of course. Certificate of recognition, a resolution honoring Mr. Ronnie Thompson. Whereas Mr. Ronnie Thompson is retiring in December of 2019 after serving with the Sumner County Highway Department for 31 years. And whereas Mr. Thompson began working at the Highway Department in 1988 and shortly after was promoted to equipment operator, then in 2011 began serving as an area foreman. With his dedication and expertise has been a great asset to our county. And whereas Mr. Thompson's tireless work, longstanding efforts, and commitment to serving the citizens of Sumner County has gained the respect of not only his co-workers, but also the many residents who have come to know him. And whereas Mr. Thompson and his wife, Wanda, for 39 years have 4 children, 8 grandchildren, 3 great-grandchildren, and he plans on spending his retirement with his family and doing the things that he loves, such as hunting, riding his motorcycle, and traveling. Now therefore be it resolved by the Sumner County Board of County Commissioners meeting in regular session on this, the 16th day of December 2019, that this body hereby commends and congratulates Mr. Ronnie Thompson for his long and dedicated service, years of service, and wishes him the best as he retires. And be it further resolved that this resolution is to be spread on the minutes of this body, and the clerk is to furnish a copy of this resolution to Mr. Ronnie Thompson, and I so move.
Motion made by Mr. Hinton, seconded by Commissioner Mo Taylor. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
I want to say something, Mr. Hinton.
Go right ahead.
Over 9 years, I never had, I would call on him for different things, and he was always there. So thank you.
You're more than welcome.
And also, your road's getting water.
It just happens when it rains.
No, you're getting city water. You're one of the roads that we got a grant for to run city water on your road, so congratulations.
I can quit hauling it now.
Yeah.
Thank y'all very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Mr. Hinton, I think you need to stay up here for this one. I know, I still think you ought to stay. Mr. Driver's going to come. We could have our Portland volleyball team come up with their coaches.
Over here, Larry. You may have to help me read this.
I actually have a purple shirt, Mr. Hinton, believe it or not.
Sorry.
Mr. Kemp got his, though.
Mr. Driver's the band director, since we got him.
I'd have worn my purple shirt, they told me.
You can't, hey, it's good to wear blue.
All right. We have a resolution honoring the Portland High School Lady Panthers volleyball team. Whereas Portland High School Lady Panthers volleyball team had a very successful 2019 and concluded the season as state AA runners-up, Region 6 AA champions, and District 11 AA champions with a total record of 44-11. And whereas with the dedication and diligence, head coach Rob Leisman, assistant coaches Ginger Leisman and Connie Moyer encouraged players to be their best, and under their leadership, seniors Emily Rogers, Josie Runyon, Katie Crutchfield, juniors Ashton Hoffman, Jordan Latimer, Lauren Waldron, Kiara Gregory, and Savannah Pippin, sophomores Anna McLaughlin, Grace Tucker, Madison Linville, Raylee Hester, and Sydney Lawless, and freshmen Emma High, Jewel Webb, Layla Lofton, Liz Rogers, and Shelby Richards displayed great team spirit with outstanding talent and determination. And whereas Lady Panthers volleyball players maintained their record of excellence from previous years, where they were state AA, Region 6 AA, and District 11 AA champions in 2018, and state AA, Region 6 AA, and District 11 AA champions in 2017, and became the only team in school history to win the 2 state championships back-to-back. Now therefore be it resolved by the Sumner County Board of County Commissioners meeting in regular session on this 16th day of December 2019, that this body hereby congratulates Portland High School's Lady Panthers volleyball players for their outstanding achievements and commends Mr. Rob Leisman, Ms. Ginger Leisman, and Ms. Connie Moyer for their leadership and dedication, and wishes them continued success in the future. And be it further resolved that this resolution is to be spread on the minutes of this body, and the clerk is to furnish a copy of this resolution to Portland High School's Lady Panthers team, and I so move.
Motion made by Commissioner Driver, seconded by Commissioner Gomendon. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. It's always an honor to have a good enough year to where we earn to get to come here. This the third year we've been here. We didn't win this year. Would have liked to have added that to it, but we had a very successful year. This is our 31st team at the high school, and these seniors they did an excellent job. I think I told them through the year that I actually liked this team. They were fun to be around, fun to travel with, and they were a large part of it because they were very good leaders, and they were good examples for the girls that are coming up, for the juniors for next year, and the examples that they need to be as leaders. So we have a tradition at Portland that we expect to maintain, and they stepped in and did a very good job with it, and very appreciative of this award and the recognition that these girls get. They deserve everything we can get recognition-wise. They've earned it, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, I want to, Ginger, do you want to say something? Okay. But, hey, I did want to say Mr. Woods planned to be here tonight, but we had an early graduation ceremony tonight. We had 400 early graduates in Sumner County. We had 34 we had our first early graduation ceremony tonight because we have some kids, like one young man's headed off to boot camp for Marines in a couple months and wouldn't be able to be here in May. So we wanted to do an early graduation for those kids that graduate early. So Mr. Woods was over there passing out diplomas to a couple of Portland High School graduates. Otherwise, you know that he would have been here. And I have to say, for an old White House boy, like 3 years ago, I was sitting at my computer when y'all were playing Knox Catholic, and I'll be honest, like I hate Knox Catholic. And so somebody walked in, they said, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm hitting refresh because I'm cheering for Portland." And they said, "Really?" In the principal's office at White House High School, I was like, "Yeah, they got to win." And then last year, the same thing, and this year. And, I think what gets lost in a resolution is that this was not something that just happened even the last 3 years. Rob and Ginger have put together a program in Portland that starts at the earliest ages. And it excites me. Like, I remember as a kid growing up coming to Gallatin, and everything was painted green and gold. If you stood around long enough, you get painted green and gold. And y'all have really done that with Portland volleyball. I love the fact that they're, when I'm at Portland Gateview or one of the other elementary schools, like there are little girls that are looking up going like, I can't wait to put on the purple and play for Portland High School. And I don't know that y'all can appreciate what you've accomplished and what you've done, but congratulations on the state championships, but even more for being such an outstanding young group of women. And you really do. I know Coach Rob teases you a lot, but you can see how much they love you, and congratulations on a great career and a great season. All right, and we're going to, Southern Regional's not here tonight, so someone would like to make a motion to pass this resolution to Mr. Holt, okay? Motion made by Commissioner Ring, second by Commissioner Kruger. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously, and our county mayor will get that to Sumner Regional, and we're appreciative of their 60 years of service to the county. I'm going to, I guess we went ahead, so we'll go ahead and we'll do the consent agenda, and then we'll jump back to recognition of the public. As Portland is here too, let me add one more thing before we go there. Kim Meadows, it's assistant principal at Portland High School, is fighting thyroid cancer right now. And if you've ever met Kim, she's just an outstanding woman, leader, person in our county. So, as we go into the holiday season, she's got a great prognosis and is fighting hard, but we want to lift her up in our prayers as well. Also, we'll do our consent agenda, and then we'll jump back to recognition of the public. So is there a motion to approve our consent agenda? Motion made by Commissioner Sullivan, second by Commissioner Chris Taylor. See no one in the queue. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, as we go to our recognition of the public, does anyone else wish to sign up? Thank you, Mr. Weatherford. All right. What's that? Okay. Commissioner, let me say one word. I may clear up what you're going to address, I think, and then you can come back in if I don't. I was going to say, Senator Hale discussed the Comer Barn, and I see that we have 4 people signed up to discuss the Comer Barn. So since it's been mentioned on our agenda tonight, my plan is to let them speak about whatever they. I will say there's nothing on the agenda tonight that's going to be voted on the Comer Barn. But since Senator Hale addressed the legislative intent behind what the state did when they gave us the $250,000 grant, I'll be happy to let anybody, as long as I'll go through the rules in just a moment, but to let anybody speak about the Comer Barn. Commissioner Taylor, does that? Yeah. Yeah.
That when we have a contentious item like the Comer Barn, that it be clearly stated in the agenda.
Sure.
The topic of the conversation is going to be discussed. That way,
yeah, we
can let our citizens and people know.
Sure. Well, and I'll say this: there's not any intent on my part, except periodically we get a request from our legislative delegation to come and speak about something, and that was my thought. But yeah, I think we can always in the future try to be clear exactly on what it's, even if it's just a legislative report, then we'll clarify that. But all right, so we have 5 people in the queue tonight. I will remind everyone that you have 5 minutes to speak. Mr. Kemp will keep time, and he will let you know when you have 1 minute left, and then as you get close to your 5 minutes being up, I would ask, our rules of decorum are such that we ask that everyone, as you speak, remember the rules of decorum and not say anything disparaging about a citizen of Sumner County or an elected official, but you're free to address any item on the agenda. So I'll ask you as you come up to state your address for the record, and then you'll have 5 minutes. Mr. Chris Newton.
How are we doing? I'm Christopher Newton. I live at 1072 Paddock Park Circle. And the reason I'm here, again, is the Comer Barn. I've stayed out of politics my whole life. Never even thought about it. I sit at home on my couch, I watch TV, I flip through the channels. And I watch all the different channels. Think, man, these people in Washington, D.C. are crazy. What is going on up there? All this impeachment, everything. As soon as you find out, you find out something that doesn't work out, they throw something else out there. And there's something else. And that's what's happening here with this thing. I mean, every time there's something comes up, they find another thing that goes on. Let me give you a little history on this Comer barn. It was bought with nobody knowing about it in the back rooms. We had no idea. All of a sudden, we own this barn, but no property. You know, how did that happen? Out of nowhere, it just showed up. The land restrictions, we didn't know about it. All of a sudden, they found the land restrictions. Well, all of a sudden, it shoved aside for a while. It disappears. We don't talk about it for a while. And then the next thing you know, they're having this thing. It comes back up. Well, we want to have outdoor events. Only outdoor events. So I asked him, I said, what would you do if a councilman said, you know, my daughter wants to get married here. What would you do? He says, well, I'd have to say yes. I'm not going to say no to a councilman. And that's to open up the door. It's not just y'all. It's the next council that comes through. They can change their mind what they want to do with this place. And they're competing against me and other venues here in town. Then they put me on a study group. They said, well, yeah, next thing, we'll have a study group. We'll get a few of the event owners together. Well, that didn't last very long. When they found out like had two or three event owners that were objecting to it, I never got a phone call again for any kind of committee meeting or anything else. They made sure that thing was over with, and they started another committee meeting. They found a whole other committee that agrees with us. Well, that got squashed. And then all of a sudden they come up and says, you know, we need to have this because we've had these people come from out of town. We'll have 1,500 people, but we have no place in Sumner County to do this. Do you know they did not contact one event place here in this county? And there's numerous people that can handle events that size. That's not me, that's other event places. But not once did the Tourism Bureau contact one of them. But yet he said right out, we can't find a place to have it, so we got to take it to Wilson County. That's a lie. You know, it's like one thing after another. Excuse me, I apologize. Okay. That was a misstatement, an extreme misstatement. I do apologize. I did not mean to say that. I get a little heartfelt here at times. This is very important to me. This is my livelihood, guys. This pays my bills, my family, my grandkids. Then all of a sudden, they said, well, there's no taxpayer funding involved. It won't cost us a penny. Well, there's a grant coming. That's taxpayer. And they said, well, no, it ain't out of the pocket. Well, the Honorable Mr. Farrell Hill come here and says, well, maybe that wasn't right. Maybe that was another misspoke opportunity we come across. And what's next? So that got shot down. There's all these things going on. Next thing I know, we got a star witness coming up here. The Honorable, nothing against him, nice guy. That's the reason he was here. Convince y'all. He was another one brought in. Just like in Washington, D.C., they got this last guy standing here. Well, if this doesn't work, what are they going to do? They're going to bring somebody else in. You know, in my opinion, if you want to do something that we can't do as a public. A convention center, that's something the public can't do. You know, there's so many event centers in this. You have no idea. Every one of y'all have got event centers in y'all's district. I'm positive of it because there's so many of them. And right now, there's not enough events to go around for all of us. We're struggling. And y'all want me to compete against y'all too? Now, if a company come in and wanted to do it, more power to them. Thank you. This Rogers Group is one of the largest companies in this town. They're the one that let the roof fall down. They're the one that really still own that building and the property. You cannot tell me they don't have the money to fix that roof. They're the one that, unless you plan on taking that building and moving it to another site, it's really their building. It's on their property. They own it. Let them fix it. You know, it's not the taxpayer money. You know, you can do there's numerous things you do it, but you can't compete against the public. You know, open a real estate office if you want to compete against the public. There's too many realtors here. They wouldn't let that happen. You know, I'd be willing to bet if there's 5 or 6 event owners on these boards, this wouldn't be brought up at all. You know, not one time have I heard anybody from the public come up here and say, you know, we need to turn that Comer barn into an event center. How many arguments have been for that? Not one. You know, y'all guys, use common sense. That's all you gotta do is common sense. That's something Washington, D.C. lacks. Every part of it, every party.
Thank you, Mr. Newton.
Thank you very much for your time.
Mr. Casey Newton.
My name is Kason Newton, and I live at 219 Staggs Drive in Portland, Tennessee. Firstly, I'd like to say thank you for allowing me to speak here today. Though truthfully, I really do believe that what has been set in motion in regards to this Comer barn cannot and will not be dissuaded in any way. With that being said, I will still take the time to read off a list to you guys. Some of these locations I'm sure you all visit on a regular basis. I know a lot of you come to our place every quarter, but they're the following: our American Legions, our friends at Bagsby Ranch, Bluegrass Country Club, Bottom View Farm, Briar Rose Hill, Cedar Hollow, Center Stage, Country Hills, Craig Font, Days Gone By, Depot Square, Drakewood Farm, our Epic Event Center, Flip Flop Farm, Forever and Always, our Gallatin Country Club, Hazel Path, Heavenly Weddings, Historic Rosemont, the Holiday Inns, Latham's Lighthouse, Long Hollow Gardens, Madison Creek Farms, Mont Haven, Pine Hills, Rock Castle, Rock Creek Farm, Second Wind, Southern Occasions, Springhaven Mansion, Strawberry Station, Sycamore Springs, the Baber House, the Barn at Spring Lake, the Barn at Willis Branch, the Chapel, the Club at Fairview, the Gathering Place, the Grand Inheritance, the Hampton, both here in Gallatin and in Hendersonville, the Hilton Garden Inn, the Hyatt, the Pick Inn, the Red Barn, Tennessee Grasslands, all of our VFW halls, and the Westmoreland Expo Center. That's a list of 49 venues in Sumner County. And I promise you that I've left some out. I'm discovering them more and more every day. I promise you. Many of these small businesses are run by families just like my own. We rely on this business for our families, for our employees' families, and our means of living. With that many venues, we already are competing for a piece of this grand pie, a pie that you all are not intending to make any bigger, but to just take a piece of. That's something my dad always told me growing up in this business. I was never going to make any money by taking a piece bigger than I earned, but if I made the pie bigger, my piece would get bigger. I find this not only unbelievable, but completely dishonorable, and I don't understand it. In closing, I implore you to think of these businesses, even better, these families, before making any decisions about this barn. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Newton. Mr. Bagsby, Mr. Bart Bagsby.
I'd like to take the opportunity to thank each and every one of you for your service. Just this brief stint of watching this one little piece of what's going on in our county, to see what you're dealing with, the time that you have to invest to make these things happen. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to come and say my piece. The long and short of it is I actually support fixing the barn. It's a historical piece in our community, and I think it has a place here. The problem we have is that we don't have a level playing field to compete with tourism or whoever the county chooses to do this as a building. My idea to you is this does not need to be a venue. The size of it, the amount of ground that you have, the fact you don't own the ground, you'll either destroy the beauty of it with a parking lot in the 25 acres of dirt that surrounds it. There are a lot of pieces that stop it from being a venue, being a successful venue. So what I'm trying to tell you is that we don't need the competition. We can host anything at our place, in Chef Christopher's, and there's 5 others that can handle any event outdoors up to 2,500, 3,000 people. We have those facilities there. Chef does it, we do it. We had 17 events this year at no cost to our community. We funded the labor, the power, all of the things. Events such as the EMS, the Sheriff's Department's been there, multiple charities. I've seen a lot of you at our place on a regular basis for these charity events. We do this for free as service to our community, to be a part of the community. we really implore the county to find other options. I know I've talked to my councilman and several others here. There are multiple ways that the county can do this and not compete with what we're trying to do as a business here. The economic impact, you heard the senator, and I really appreciate him coming and clarifying his position tonight, and that was important that he did that. But you heard he got $11 for every dollar that was contributed. Well, if you look at the economic impact, there's no way that that facility can get us $11 back for every dollar just to run it to what the state's running at. It's not going to be a profitable situation for the county. Most of you know that. Most of you I've talked to agree with that. I think we're all on board with restoring the barn, creating some type of use for it, but it really doesn't need to be in competition with our local businesses here. And I would ask you to really think seriously about that. So when you ask your constituents, is this something that you would support? And when you ask them that, ask them if it's something that they would support if you were getting in their business. In other words, if I go see Roy Alexander at General Tire, everybody knows Roy, say, Roy, the county's going to open up a tire shop. Or I go to the real estate office, as Chef talked about, and said the county's going to now offer real estate services at a lesser price. We're going to go over here to the bank. The county's going to start loaning all of our county residents money. We're going to do it at a reduced rate because we can use taxpayer money. We don't have to worry about losses and making a profit because the county's involved. So I ask you to look at every level of business as you ask the people in this county what they're doing. Everybody wants to have an inexpensive place to go and have an event, but it costs money to do that. If you get into this, keep the playing field level. And if you'll do that, you'll find you don't want to be in the event business. It's hard work. It's really hard work. So I ask you that. Again, I thank you for your service. Thank you for what you do. You represent a lot of people here. We're a county that should be able to afford to restore that building and put it back to its grandeur and be a focal point that we can see, not necessarily use. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bagsby. Ms. Ruth Fennell.
Thank you again for letting me speak. My name is Ruth Fennell, 1049 Blue Jay Way in Gallatin. Senator Hale asked a very good question. He asked, how do you wisely spend money? Whether it is taxes, whether it's grants, whether it's gifts, whether it's negotiated contracts. So with this particular building, it's wonderful that the state has extra money that they can share of taxpayer monies. They're working a surplus. They're also working a balanced budget. We don't have that. We have no balanced budget right now. We're heading toward our $500,000, and we'll be adding more to that in the next week or two. So I think everyone agrees that the Comer Barn is a beautiful building. It's very historic. But the problem with that is that we can't designate it as historical. So it may be historical, but unless it is designated as historical, that means nothing. It really means nothing, okay? Now, Senator Hale also talked about he had no vision for it, and that's his quote. So what we're talking about is spending taxpayer money with no vision, okay? Because there may be a vision, but you've just heard 2, 3 individual citizens who earn their living and pay their bills and take care of their families in a certain way. And right now, the potential vision directly competes with those citizens and adversely affects those citizens. So the problem truly is that the owners of this building, which is not the county, have let this building deteriorate. They did not care about this beautiful building. They are the ones who have let it crumble. As was pointed out, Rogers is a group that has quite a bit of economic opportunity. And yet they have stood by and let that building disintegrate and hope that the taxpayers will come to their rescue. Well, that'd be great if we do that for everybody. There's lots of old buildings in Gallatin, old homes in Gallatin. Maybe we should go and rescue those. Those are actually things where people are living. But the problem is that in addition to the 50+ businesses that this may adversely compete with, we have about 200 students in Sumner counties that are homeless and living in cars. Do we care about that? When school is out, Christmas breaks or spring breaks, those kids don't have food. Do we care about that? We have citizens in this county who don't have running water, have to live off wells. Do we care about that? When you compare those issues to a nice, historic, but crumbling building, what is your priority? Do you care more about those homeless kids living in cars? Do you care about feeding them? Do you care about providing water? Some don't. I can see by the expressions on their faces. But I do. I think if you are prioritizing money when we are spending it like it is crazy and we've just run a printing press on it, that we need to prioritize, and that's what I'm here to ask you to do. It's a beautiful building, and yes, there's money out there, but it's a one-to-one match, okay? Prioritize for the citizens, okay? Not a building. We've got a building here that we actually own that needs a new roof. So would we rather put a roof on a building we own or a building that somebody else owns that they could take back at any time? So that money is just flushed down the toilet, okay? So I know there's an emotional attachment for a lot of people. They drive by, they've grown up seeing it. But I'm sorry, when I was listening to some of that, I had a flashback to earlier this week when we were listening to some of the impeachment hearings, and the Democrats were always talking about their growing up, this happened to me and this happened to me. I understand having emotional attachments. I understand everybody had things happen in their childhood, but you are adults. You are responsible and tasked with taking care of taxpayer dollars. And so I will respectfully ask you to prioritize and taking care of a crumbling building that the owners did not care enough about with taxpayer dollars that will compete with citizens is a lesser priority than helping people get running water, making sure that kids have food, and making sure that we are not destroying businesses within Sumner County. So thank you for letting me speak. I appreciate your time, and you guys have a good night.
Thank you, Ms. Fennell. Mr. John Miller.
I'm John Miller, 104 Pond Drive in Gallatin. You guys are going to approve a couple $100 million in debt tonight. And I know that, we all know that. And I want you to think about something while you do that, though. This is a poem by Charlie Reese. Taxes land, taxes bed, tax the table at which he's fed. Taxes tractor, taxes mule, teach him taxes are the rule. Taxes work, taxes pay. He works for peanuts anyway. Taxes cow, taxes goat, taxes pants, taxes coat. Taxes ties, taxes shirt, taxes work, taxes dirt. Taxes tobacco, taxes drink, tax him if he tries to think. Taxes cigars, taxes beer, if he cries, taxes tears. Taxes car, taxes gas, find other ways to tax his ass. Tax all he has, then let him know that you won't be done till he has no dough. When he screams and hollers, then tax some more, tax until he's good and sore. Then tax his coffin, tax his grave, tax the sod under which he's laid. Put these words upon his tomb, taxes drove me to my doom. When he's done, do not relax, it's time to apply the inheritance tax. There's an accounts receivable tax, building permit tax, CDL license tax, cigarette tax, corporate income tax, dog license tax, excise tax, federal income tax, federal unemployment tax, fishing license tax, food license tax, fuel permit tax, gasoline tax, gross receipts tax, hotel tax, hunting license tax, inheritance tax, inventory tax, IRS interest charge, which is a tax, liquor tax, luxury tax, marriage license tax, Medicare tax, personal property tax, real estate tax, service charge tax, Social Security tax, road usage tax, recreational vehicle tax, sales tax, school tax, state income tax, state unemployment tax, telephone federal excise tax, telephone federal universal service fee tax, telephone federal, state, and local surcharge tax, telephone minimum usage surcharge tax, telephone reoccurring, non-recurring tax, telephone state and local tax, telephone usage charge tax, utility tax, vehicle license registration tax, vehicle sales tax, watercraft registration tax, well permit tax, worker compensation tax. Funny thing about those taxes, none of them existed 100 years ago. And our nation was the most prosperous in the world. We had no national debt. We had the largest middle class in the world, and mom stayed home and took care of the kids. What happened? Last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to read something that was written by one of the commissioners about the people that speak here from the citizen side of the aisle. Same 20 to 40 people every time. Everyone thinks that they speak for the 200,000 plus. As you know, we hear from them too, the commonsensical, and we know what they're thinking. So I guess the people that speak here aren't full of common sense. But as I look around, all of you guys, all of you folks speak for the 200,000. Do you really? Do you really speak for the 200,000? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, we'll move on now. We've got our notaries, or your written reports are on your desk. We'll go to our notaries. Is there a motion to approve our notaries? Motion made by Commissioner Eccles. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Gamenden. Let's vote.
No applications on the board. Each commissioner, please record your vote. 22 votes are entered. Does anyone wish to change your vote? With 22 affirmative votes, notaries are unanimously approved.
Good. I'm glad the notaries squeaked in there and got a win. We're going to go to Committee on Committees. Mr. Good.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, Committee on Committees met tonight. It's a regular scheduled meeting. And the business at hand was, first is the Board of Construction Appeals. Rick Holcomb requested not to be reappointed. And the county executive has, I'm sorry, I have jumped ahead. Rick Holcomb, his resume is attached to be appointed. I apologize. And that was unanimous, and I so move.
Okay. Motion made by Commissioner Good, seconded by Commissioner Eccles. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Good.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Health and Safety Standards Board, Daniel Koulianos and James Floxneer was grouped and approved from the county mayor recommendation. It was unanimous. I so move.
Motion made by Commissioner Good, second by Commissioner Eccles. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Good.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Joint Economic and Community Development Board, George Carter asked not to be appointed. County Mayor appointed Tony Bentel, and it was unanimous, and I so move.
Okay. Motion made by Commissioner Good, second by Commissioner Eccles. See no one in the queue. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Good.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The balance of the Joint Economic Development Committee was grouped and approved. Frank Flynn, Greenbelt, Mike Fussell, Hendersonville, Ace, Harrington, Gallatin, Jimmy Johnson, Ford, Sumner, Earl Fisher, Gallatin, EDA. It was unanimous. I so move.
Motion made by Commissioner Good, second by Commissioner Ring. I see no one in the queue. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Please show Commissioner Moteller abstaining. Otherwise, it's unanimous. Mr. Good.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That is it for the formal business. The January's agenda is on the back of the sheet. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Good. Mr. Sullivan. Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Remember, please check your emails. Ben sent out an email today about the process for appointing a new school board member as we keep the Hawkins family in our prayers during their time of loss. Highway Commission, Mr. Hinton. Okay. General Ops, Michelle.
No report, sir.
Emergency Services. No report. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Kruger. Legislative Committee, Mr. Ring.
Yes, sir. I'm going to make a motion to accept this, and then I'm going to move an amendment. So,
okay.
The resolution 1912-01, setting the regular meetings of the Sumner County Board of County Commissioners during the 2020 school year. I so move.
Okay. Motion made by Commissioner Ring, Second by Commissioner Shell.
Now I have an amendment.
Okay?
My amendment is, and then we can discuss the amendment, is to change the March 16th meeting to March 23rd. 16th, 17th, 23rd. Second.
Second that.
All right, hang on, I think we've got, let's do a blanket, because I know there were a couple dates that we missed. March 16th to the 23rd is one. There's a week in December that I think, Michelle, what is that one?
Yeah, the 21st is actually the week of Christmas, and so I spoke with our law director about possibly pushing that back. We would have to move some committee meetings to the last week of November, but I don't think any of us want to be sitting in here the week of Christmas. Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let me add that to my motion, is that we change the December meeting to December 14th. My amendment, sorry. And let me speak to the amendment. Thank you. The March meeting is.
Hang on, Mr. Let me get this. Is there a second for the amendment?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Krieger. Go ahead.
I'm just going to add that to my amendment, but if that's okay. The March 23rd, the reason to change that is that March 16th is during spring break, and we generally have people whose families are out of town during spring break, and there's always a possibility that if there's enough of them that could make it difficult for us to have a quorum. So that was the reason to move that one to the fourth Monday, and then Ms. Shell stated the reason for moving the other one to the second Monday in December.
Okay. All right. Let's see, Ms. Kruger, you're in the queue.
Sorry.
Okay.
I was just going to make the amendment.
All right, I see no one else in the queue, so let me just summarize this again. On the amendment to the main motion, March 16th to March 23rd, December 21st to December 14th is the amendment. I see no one else in the queue. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The amendment passes unanimously. Back to the main motion. Does anyone wish to speak to the main motion? See no one in the queue. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Ring.
Thank you. No, nothing else, sir.
Okay. Financial management, Mr. Becker.
Yes, we met actually with a joint meeting with the Budget Committee back on, I guess it was last Monday, December the 9th. And with the Budget Committee following my report, I'll just leave it at that, and it will come up in their report. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Becker. Commissioner Chris Taylor.
Resolution 1912-02, initial resolution authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $86,750,000 general obligation public improvement bond for Sumner County. I so move.
Okay. Motion made by Commissioner Chris Taylor, seconded by Commissioner Goode. Commissioner Mo Taylor, you're in the queue.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Referring back to the August meeting where we set our tax rate for the year, which funds bonds.
Yes, sir.
The tax rates are derived by our pennies. We got 226 pennies because our tax rate's $2.26. So 226 pennies bring in a little over $140 million in revenue. I'd like to ask the question, Mr. Chairman, to maybe the finance director, maybe you know, when we were in the budget process, I heard the differing values through setting through meetings of their pennies worth $5.85, our pennies worth $6.20, our pennies worth $6.50. So I did my math and my figures. I shot in the middle with $6.20. So could I get a definite answer on what the penny's worth?
Mr. Long, can you answer that?
Mr. Chairman, I do not have that with me, but I can obtain that.
Can I get a guesstimate?
Let me look on the website and I can
About
probably, I don't believe it's that high.
Okay.
Can we,
From budget, when we talked this summer, Commissioner Taylor, we went with the 585 number, and the reason being is that was based upon not necessarily getting 100% collections and any other changes that might have impacted it in a negative way. So we went with the lowest number to try and figure things out.
Well, when this was presented with the 226, we had 12 cents for the teacher raises, 4 cents for jail modules, a penny, I think, additional for the highway, 2 cents for school resource officers, and then we had $14.36 for inflation. So when I go on back through this, and we have basically, what I like to call it, we got 226 pennies to spend. The value of that penny is worth 585, let's say 600,000. So we took that 226 and we dropped it in 5 different buckets. And that's county general, general debt service, highway public works, general purpose school, capital projects, and in the general debt service, we dropped 27.86 of those pennies in that bucket. So my question is, from the previous stuff that I talked about, where did those pennies come from that come into that bucket? What breakdown from this presentation that we were given on the requested tax rate composition, how many pennies, say, dropped into the debt service bucket? Yes.
Hang on one second, Mr. Lane. Let me get your microphone on.
Let me actually see which one we're talking about.
It's on. We got it.
The ones that were reallocated?
Yes.
There was 4 cents, which is noted here for the jail module, parking garage, and justice center. That's been put into the capital projects in the interim that's going to go back into debt service.
So we spent that already, right, this year?
Yes, but that's going to go back into debt service next year.
Okay.
And then that was, there was a penny and a half that was moved from debt service over into capital projects this year to fund the projects. It will be moved back next year.
So how many of the 14 pennies of inflation was moved to debt service?
It was a percentage of the total tax levy. I'd have to go upstairs and actually.
But it was a pretty substantial percentage of the 14 cents of inflation had to be dropped into the debt service bucket.
No, because the largest would go to general purpose school fund by default.
But in this presentation that we were given.
The way to think about it that's simple would be to say, take that 14 cents inflation and divide it into those 5 buckets you were talking about, or however many buckets you want to bring up, and it goes across evenly based upon the previous spending for the tax distribution. It's preset on where all of our money goes.
So 58% of the inflation money went to the schools. That's what was in this document in August.
About 8 pennies.
Mm-hmm.
About 8 pennies.
Of the inflation.
Yes.
But we had, was that 11 or 12 pennies we're saying went for teacher raises.
And actually, as I said back then, the 12 pennies for the teacher raise was not enough to cover the raise. Dr. Phillips realized that and was willing to move some of their inflation money over there. So the additional pennies they got for inflation was going to have to help cover the teacher raises.
Okay. So our debt service bucket is worth 12%, 12.32 according to this document. So a certain percentage of that inflation money went to debt service.
Yes.
So we're inflating our debt with inflation money.
That's a horrible, no, the way you said that makes absolutely 0 sense. I'm sorry, sir.
Makes sense to me.
It very well might, but it doesn't to the rest of the room. So I don't know any other nice way to say that.
So, I mean, anyways, to go to this, this is, so I stay on point. I don't get called out of order, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
Yes, sir. $86,750,000 for judicial. And the total is $103 million. So think about this. And I have to think about it because I've been posed all kinds of questions. And by the citizens, my constituents, your constituents, some of your constituents, and people just in general, because I'm very approachable when it comes to the issues. Just this commission that was sworn in September of 2018 And I'm gonna round down, because when we hear what the factual numbers that's on the piece of paper here, now the details lies within the paperwork that we get, that some of the citizens probably never see. So we think, well, 2018-19 bond, $103 million. That don't sound too bad. Well, it does to me, but, so this one's $103,600,000. Well, that's just a little bit higher than the last one. Until, you know, a bond is kind of like is different than a car or anything else you pay. We're guaranteed to pay interest on these bonds for a set number of years that's approved in the bond documents. So you can't just say, in 13 months, we're looking to borrow $206,600,000. You got to add that nasty old word that's called interest unless you're receiving it. If you're paying it, it's a nasty word. If you're getting it, it's a good word. So those two bonds, just those two bonds, the total that I came up with from the documents that we all received is $277,238,064. I'm going to deduct 7 just because we don't know yet. So $270 million, I'll play, you know, conservatively, because we don't know what the bond rate is going to come in or the spiffs that we get on this bond issuance. So, but still, in 13 months, $250 million in debt. $250 million. That's some of the biggest numbers that, you know, you'll ever vote on. I hope we never vote on numbers like this again. But if you tack into 2015, our debt from then, you're looking at like $100 million. 70-something million for the actual bond. Then you got to tack on that dirty word, interest. So we have to pay it back. We and all of our constituents, we are putting our property owners, we're killing them. I mean, some of them, you don't understand the impact that we're having on them. 2 tax increases in less than 5 years. Now we're going to sink our county another $131 million in debt. You know, if or when the economy tanks, you know, we're not going to have the great playing field like we have right now. We budget 0 growth. So throughout the year and at the end of the year, when the budget comes in, you know, there's no growth money in our budgets because we didn't budget for it. So that's all special and extra. That captures our inflation, by the way, in my opinion. So we got to slow down. We got to put the brakes on. We got to help too. I think I was looking back through documents today. Our adequate facilities tax brings in like $2.8 million a year. That's in this booming economy with all these building permits out there. $2.8 million is what the growth, other than sales tax, and smaller taxes, that's all that it's bringing in. So at $2.8 million a year, I call that an inadequate facilities tax because it's not keeping up with a $120-something million school that we're trying to build. It's not touching it. It'll probably wouldn't much more than pay the staffing, which you can't use it for that because the inadequate facility tax has to be used to pay on debt. So we just got to do something different. And I could propose a $50,000 lot impact fee. If I could get a second, I wouldn't do that, but it wouldn't pass. Probably wouldn't pass. Probably wouldn't make it out of committee. We got to do something. We got to make the people that's causing this step up to the plate and write the checks rather than asking our property owners to do it every time. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Taylor. Commissioner Mansfield. All right, hang on one second, Mr. Mansfield.
Would you like me to answer the 2 earlier questions?
Sure, that'd be great.
The net amount of the property tax is estimated to be around $585,000. The amount quoted was actually gross, the actual gross, which means it would include collectability, TIF, tax freeze, and various other things that had to be removed. The amount of the inflation that actually went to debt service was 2.03 pennies out of the 14. And it's actually on on your budget, it's actually on the original budget on page number 4.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Long. Mr. Mansfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we're talking about the general obligation public improvement bond for $86,750,000. In November of 2018, when we approved the last school bond, the finance director, I guess, revealed to me that based on the current tax rate at the time, zero growth and no usage of the fund balance, the county would not have additional debt capacity until January the 1st, 2024. So, at that time, my way I interpret this is that, we couldn't really borrow any money for almost 5 years to do a large project. So my question for this particular bond resolution, 1912-02, is why didn't we wait until 2024 to borrow money for phase 1 of the courthouse project instead of raising property taxes this year in order to fast track it? If we could have borrowed money then without raising property taxes. Anybody answer that question?
As was stated several times in that discussion that night, and in many instances since then, the reason it was moved further along was twofold. One, for almost 9 months, now 10, the jail has been overcrowded by 10%, sometimes more than that. And in speaking with the sheriff, we didn't realize the exigency of it because he understood that it was coming along sooner than we thought, as far as when we discussed the jail pods. That was the first part. We had to do something for the jails immediately. The second part was we were in negotiations with Gallatin. They had already made good faith measures by issuing a bond so they could include the parking garage. That parking garage was not included in the initial phase of the judicial project. Because of that, it had to be moved up to include those. One, to get the parking garage in the beginning rather than the end, and two, to move up the timeline on the jails. That was said a couple million times, I think.
So I understand what you're saying, but I guess to borrow $86 million to make improvements to the jail, I don't think is prudent or expedient or necessary. Obviously, I think we could have, there's plenty of places I think we could have found money for a couple $1 million for jail improvements out of other things. So you bring up a good point about the garage on the Gallatin Square. Have all the property owners on the square consented in writing to giving up their land or trading it or selling it or whatever for this new parking garage?
Mr. Mansfield, we're not in that stage of the process yet.
Well, but you're asking us to vote on borrowing money for a project when we don't know if we have the property for the project. So I think it's very wrong.
Mr. Mansfield, I don't know how to, I'll try to answer this without being obnoxious about it, but that's just not the way projects work. You have to have the money to pay for the project before you can negotiate with someone to purchase property. I understand that's not the way you prefer to do business, but that is the way that every civic government in Tennessee does business.
So I guess, can I get an answer whether all the property owners have consented or have we
Well, it
gotten-
wouldn't be from Mr. Taylor, it would be from Michelle, but if Michelle would like to jump in the queue without objection, we can ask her.
Negotiations. We are not done with negotiations yet. Sorry, my mic wasn't on.
So I guess that's a concern to me, just on the fact of moving forward, because what if somebody doesn't want to give us their property? I mean, are we looking at condemnation of their property in order to get it?
My understanding, and Michelle, if you want, I mean, you can jump in if I get it wrong. My understanding is that there's not a lot of hostility between the property owners and us, that it's a negotiation, that they just want to make sure that they're on board with the city of Gallatin, that they're on board with us, and they want to see what the garage, I think their concerns are more what the garage looks like, which is right now in the design process. So, they want to I think their concerns are more what it's going to look like in terms of the downtown square before they give up their property to be a part of it. But I don't think there's any animosity. Michelle, does that capture your meeting?
That's correct. We have had a meeting with the property owners. That meeting went very well. We informed them of some things. We addressed some concerns that they had, and that process will continue on just the way that it did with the church when we were looking at purchasing that. We want to be a good neighbor to them, and they want to be a good neighbor to us. This is a joint project that is going to leave behind a legacy project for all of us. And it was a good meeting, and I don't anticipate any problems moving forward with that, acquiring that property, if that answers your question.
I hear what you're saying, but I guess I can't move forward on good wishes and good wills and good faith, personally. So I'll move along forward. I have some debt capacity questions. Sort of got them answered. Financial management sort of did not. So my first question is, based on the current tax rate, zero growth and no usage of net unassigned fund balance, what will be our debt capacity if this legislative body tonight passes this $103,600,000 bond? What will that debt capacity be?
All right, knowing that it fluctuates every year because as the time goes on, we pay off previous bonds that the county has. Initially, after we pass this year, next year would be around 12 million debt capacity. The following year after that would be, I think, 19, 20, somewhere in there, and then it goes back up to around the 30, 40 range, or actually goes up to almost 50 at that point. So it increases each year. So if, heaven forbid, we had an emergency, something came up, we could certainly address it. There's other projects that long-term planning, middle school, things like that, that are well within the debt capacity when those times come up. So we have plenty of breathing room.
So the new county payment each year, correct me if I'm wrong, including interest, if we pass these bonds, will be $34 million to service the entire debt that we have. Is that correct?
Mr. Long, if you have that information.
Next year, the actual, say if we issued the bond July 1st, based on the payment, the next year's payments would be with interest around $34 million. But the next 1, 2, 3, 4 years are the same. The next year drops off 6, and the next year drops off $10 million. So that's how you create your capacity. You have a significant amount of principal paid each year and a shrinking amount of payments. What Mr. Taylor was saying is you have capacities based on the next 2 known projects, but if you had emergencies, you've not issued those projects, they could be pushed forward to give you additional capacity.
So another question I have is on page 58 of our budget. I just printed it out for myself tonight. Our allocated debt service revenues we have at 32.707378, $32.7 million approximately. So where are you getting the money for this $34 million in debt service to pay off, since we didn't budget for that as a shortfall?
There's no shortfalls we discussed a few minutes ago, and we've actually discussed earlier in the budgets. There's 4 cents that was put over in the capital projects fund, an additional 1.5 cents that was allocated for 1 year over the capital projects fund. So you're not accounting for about 5 cents of property taxes. So actually, you're not accounting for all the revenues.
So, so you're saying that couple of $1 million is available to move towards debt service for servicing that debt?
That was the discussion when the taxes were actually raised. Is there was 4 cents for the projects that Mr. Taylor mentioned earlier, and there's actually 1.5 cents moved to handle the Justice Centers this year with the intent of moving it back to the debt service fund to actually fund the Justice Center as was discussed.
Okay. So again, correct me if I'm wrong on this. The Hendersonville TIF will be paid off after June 30th, 2020. Is that correct?
That's an estimate. It's going to be paid off this fiscal year or shortly thereafter.
Okay, so could be next fall?
No, it's really close to the amount collected versus the amount paid off.
Okay.
They're really close this year.
Okay.
So if there's some left, it will be a small amount next year.
And that money to confirm is going to be allocated towards operating expenses associated with the new schools and, staffing specifically is what was said in financial management for the new schools and for the courthouse, right?
Those are, right now, for instance, the TIF is netted against the existing property tax rate. So if you left it where it was at, it would go across all the funds. But the discussion has been in the Budget Committee several times that we have two big projects coming up, opening 3 new schools and a Justice Center. So the most advantageous use of that would be opening up those 4 facilities. There's actually 4. There's the Justice Center and 3 schools.
So one thing I didn't catch the other night is what is the total amount of money that we're going to receive from this TIF when it comes in?
Just off the top of my head, and I think it's actually on the budget document.
The guesstimate is about 2.4.
Commissioner Chris knows it.
Yeah,
Commissioner Chris Taylor.
the guesstimate is about 2.4 million, somewhere in there.
I think it's around about 2.5, without verifying that.
So in the joint budget and financial management meeting, we were told about a plan, I guess, for this. Do you have, or can somebody email me or share me a plan with a breakdown of details associated with the staffing needs and operational expenses for the 3 new schools in addition to the operational expenses of the courthouse? Like, what's the plan that was mentioned the other night in the meeting? Like a breakdown of those costs? Do you guys have, does anybody have that information?
Chairman, are you asking specifically like how many extra teachers are hiring, that how many janitors it's going to take?
What is, because we're not borrowing $131 million. We're committing ourselves to expending a lot more money in the future.
Yeah, and I
for
think,
operational costs.
I'm going to jump in here because I think we've moved beyond the scope of this motion. This motion is dealing with the bond resolution, not the ongoing, we're in the land of capital expenditures, not the land of operational expenditures. I think any, 2 or 3 years out from a school, or courthouse operational expenses are future budget years, not current capital bond issues.
Well, I don't want to jump ahead to the next resolution, but it kind of deals with what you
Well,
said.
it'd be out of order there too, because it's still you're dealing with operational, not capital.
So, well.
It's still out of order. Any way you ask it, you're still asking an operational question about a bond or capital issue, which is not the point of this resolution.
Okay. So, well, kind of bring up my point about that of asking about things. Back in October of 2018, the board approved plans for a 3-school campus. And the estimation of that phase 1 of the plan, which was the 2 schools, was said to be around $99.5 million. We borrowed approximately $103 million. We also appropriated $2.9 million, so close to $106 million. So, of course, this doesn't take into account for interest, which the senior commissioner for the first district talked about a little bit, but you're close to $160 million just for those 2 schools with interest as well.
The industry standard accepted right now for inflation on construction is 5% a year, give or take. That you said 2 years ago, it's about 10%. So we're still, and for a $99 million project, I think is what you said. I'm trying to remember the numbers.
99.5 is what the director of school stated it October 2000, a year ago.
So you're looking at 5%, 7.5%, however you want to split it. So of a $100 million project, you're looking at about, what, $6 to $7 million difference? I think that kind of explains it, doesn't it?
So, Mr. Chairman, you have to tell me, is it appropriate for me to just talk about the total bond 103,600, or would you?
No, you have to wait till that one, Mr. Mansfield. Right now, we're on the 86,750.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mansfield. Commissioner Graves.
Mr. Chairman, I hope you don't call me out of order, because I'm not going to get out of order, but thank you, Mr. Chairman. We keep running over, and I noticed the parking garage is still in here. And the commissioner over there talked about they had a meeting. How many meetings have y'all had with the landowners?
We met one time so far with the property owners. We did not meet with them until the project was passed by the full county commission, and once this body chose to pass that, then I scheduled a meeting with them. And then we were quickly upon the holidays, and so we all agreed as a team that we would probably meet after the first of the year, just in,
Now, who met
scheduling.
with landowner, property owners?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Who met with the property owners?
I did.
Just by yourself?
The project manager was with me, from No Box, Randall Coy, and the property owners, yes.
I'm getting to a point here in a minute. I've been watching TV the last few days, basic weather. I'm gonna get to a point. I'm not a lawyer.
Okay, Mr. Mason, get there quickly.
The property owner, I know the property owners. I know one of them real good. They don't want the parking garage in their back door. I'm gonna tell you for a fact. I'll talk one-on-one on it. Now, you not putting in a water line, but you do have to get an easement before, or approval from the property owner before you can build this building, or parking garage, excuse me. We don't have that. Is that right, Mr. Chairman?
Say it again, I'm sorry, Mr. Grace.
We don't have the property owner's permission to use that property.
No, sir, not yet.
Okay. Well, as I said just a minute ago, and I'm going back over this, I know one of the property owners, they don't want it there. You're gonna put them in this is where we care about citizens or we don't, even though we're dealing with property. You got to, you got to have a concern about taking somebody's land. And if he don't agree, or that person that owns that property don't agree with that, we don't have but another option, especially if we approve $86 million. But to do that. And I know I'm going over and over, but that's one concern that I have. My biggest concern is that property is not big enough to do what we're doing there. You'd be lucky to have a Rock Springs Road around that building to get in and out of the buildings once you get all that on that lot. We could have looked at other options. I don't believe we looked for any other options other than putting it uptown. And I don't have a problem with the courthouse, the Justice Center, or the parking garage, but I do have a problem with it there. And like I said, we need to, before we approve this bond, to me, we need to have, unless we're just gonna go take their property. If that's, I understood that the county's already getting appraisals.
Mr. Graves, I think you've made your point, and I think we're like real preliminary on that, because, I think if I were negotiating, I would say I was against selling it too initially.
Well, I got one more.
Okay, sure.
On that process, if they don't want it, what is our other option? Can I get that question answered tonight?
I don't think we can answer that tonight, because, that's a lot of ifs.
Well, it's not a very big if when a guy already told me, the person that owns the property already told me that he didn't want it.
Well, I think, and I don't want to belabor this, but I think the other if is there's a whole bunch of property owners on that square that would see the placement of the courthouse there. If you remember back to when we talked and considered, didn't even consider, but mentioned maybe looking at another location. If you remember the large number of Save the Historic Courthouse signs.
Yes, I understand that.
It's the tough part of our job, which is balancing the one against the many. So I hear what you're saying, Mr. Graves, but I don't think I can give you an answer on it tonight.
My understanding was we weren't going to close the courthouse down anyway.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm right or wrong.
No,
we weren't going to do it anyway. We may change some offices to change
yes, sir.
the outlay of it.
Yes, sir. The historic courthouse will stay.
I don't see a lot of concern here tonight, especially of what we're looking at.
Thank you, Mr. Graves, following our rules.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Mr. Taylor. Okay, thank you. All right, Commissioner Foster.
I call for the question, Mr. Chairman.
All right, is there a second? Second made by Commissioner Good, first by Mr. Foster to call the question. Remember, we need 16 votes to call the question. So I'd like to give Mr. Kemp a minute to get it into the system.
Vote on the question to end debate is on the board. Each commissioner, please record your vote.
It's not letting me vote, Mr. Kemp. Oh, it is. Okay, it's on. Okay.
16 votes are entered. Anyone not voting wishing to vote? Anyone wishing to change your vote? With 17 affirmative votes, the call for question is approved. We're now ready to vote on the motion. Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
All right. Just a reminder, we're on 1912-02, the initial resolution authorizing the issuance of not to exceed 86.75 million general obligation public improvement bond of Sumner County, Tennessee. Let's vote.
Resolution is on the board. Each commissioner, please record your vote. Twenty-two votes are entered. Anyone wishing to change your vote? With 18 affirmative votes, the resolution is approved.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Kemp. Commissioner Chris Taylor, back to you.
Got you.
Okay.
You're good now.
It's not the first time. No, probably was needed. 1912-03, authorizing the issuance in one or more series of general obligation school and public improvement bonds of Sumner County, Tennessee in the aggregate principal amount not to exceed $103,600,000 for the purpose of financing schools and certain public works projects. I so move.
Okay. Motion made by Commissioner Taylor, seconded by Commissioner Goode. Commissioner Mansfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Glad not to be out of order on this one. So going back to kind of what I was leading into a little earlier. So when the school approved $99.5 million last year for this project, we borrowed 103. We appropriated 2.9 million total from the county commission side towards it. So my question is, several questions. So why didn't the school board plan for this additional $16.85 million in the 6 extra classrooms when asking for the money in November of 2018?
I think, let me see if let me take a run at this. One thing is, and I don't know that this came out in financial management, clearly is, all right, so when you build a school and you hire a contractor, if you do, like, I cannot think of the low voltage technology, basically is all your computers, your cameras, your sound equipment. You probably understand this better than I do, Mr. Mansfield. But basically, if you buy that through the contractor, you immediately pay 15% of their markup plus sales tax, okay? And you can't use the state contract. The state of Tennessee puts out huge bids on equipment like that for schools and government entities across the board to use. So what a lot of school systems, for instance, Collierville and right outside Memphis, they used this protocol, as did Wilson County when they were building Green Hills High School, the new one that they're about to open up this year. Basically what you do is if you wait until closer to the time of the school opening, you can purchase all that stuff. The school system can purchase it and hire a company to install it, and you immediately save the 15% off the top plus the 9%, 9.25% on sales tax, plus you can buy it off of the state bid, plus you're 2 years down the road to get more current technology as opposed to buying it today and waiting for school that'll open in 2 years. So the bulk of that is for that. The same is really true with furniture and things like that. If you buy it through your contractor, if you put it in the bond, then you're bound to do it in that process. So it's more affordable for the school system and for the county as a result to cover the bulk of that in that way because it gives you a big purchasing advantage.
So in 2018, when we passed this a year ago, and if our debt capacity, we didn't have additional debt capacity until January the 1st of 2024. So if we didn't raise property taxes this year, if we wouldn't have done that, how were we planning on paying for this?
Actually, that's incorrect. At the time that we approved this last year, we had the debt capacity for the school.
I'm just going by what the finance director stated to me, that we would not have additional debt capacity unless we
please make sure that you're stating exactly what he said to you and in the context he said it to you, because
So I asked specifically, what would be our debt capacity and when would it be available? Specifically, the answer was based on the current tax rate at that time, which I've already read this before, and based on zero growth and no usage of the fund balance, the county would not have additional debt capacity until January the 1st, 2024. So we have a $16.85 million shortfall on top of the $103 million we borrowed last year and on top of the $2.9 million we appropriated total for this project. So that brings us up to $123 million for this project in total.
I'm going to let Mr. Long go ahead on this one.
Two things that the commissioner just said. One, the model that was given to you was on zero growth.
Correct.
There's actually growth during those years, which is going to create capacity. And number two, there was the discussion of the 2.03 cents a minute ago of inflation. Those two numbers alone, and if we stretched out the debt, would have covered the schools.
So,
but the zero model would have not covered this.
Okay.
In all reality, no.
So I know, but that money that we captured growth, we spent that. So, I mean, we spent that in other places.
No, sir, that's where I said make sure it's in the appropriate context in the conversation you had with Mr. Long. We do most of our projections based on very, very conservative estimates, which for the bond capacity, when he gave you the projections for the next 40 years, we did that on zero growth because we didn't want there to be any kind of misrepresentation at any point by anybody on the commission. So that's not necessarily exactly how it happens. In real life, we have growth. And so he's calculated that growth in, so that's what the difference is.
Hang on. Let's let one person speak at a time. Commissioner Taylor, are you finished?
Yes, sir, I'll let Mr. Long.
Okay, Commissioner Long. Mr. Long, excuse me.
You don't bank your growth for a long-term projection because it's over 20 years. But between the time we discussed, two things happen. Your sales tax is averaging out a growth pretty significant, about 6% a year. You've also got growth in your property tax and your adequate facilities right now. Also, there was inflation captured with the tax rate. Those would have created enough capacity for this 16.7 million.
Well,
otherwise, with the time, no. If we go back in time, we take out inflation and we put that back to zero growth, then you would not have money for this.
And thank you for answering that question. That was kind of my point. So, and part of this is 6 extra classrooms. Why wasn't that budgeted in at the time with this project?
What's that?
Oh, excuse me.
When I talked to Dr. Phillips, my understanding was because right now we are under a heavy inflationary time, that it was probably more prudent to go ahead and add in those classrooms at this time versus waiting several years down the road with the classrooms escalating. That was my understanding. I hate to speak for him, but he's not here to discuss it at this point.
He's actually here.
Oh, is he? I'm sorry.
We can, Dr.
Is
Phillips,
that correct, Dr. Phillips?
Dr. Phillips, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, we did this the same way we did Burris years ago.
Hang on, Dr. Phillips, we're about to use a microphone.
Mr. Mansfield, as he approaches, I want to also reiterate to you that we've asked all the departments over the past year and a half to look at 5-year capital, 20-year capital, 5-year operational. One of those things that would be considered would be the new school. And when we brought that up with Dr. Phillips last year, to make sure that it's appropriate for the next 5 years, 20 years capital, but 5 years operational. So that's also going to come into factor.
All right, without objection, I'm going to go to Dr. Phillips to answer about the 6 classrooms.
Yeah,
Thank you, Dr. Phillips.
we did this the exact same way we did Burris. When we bid those schools, we always put as an alternate the additional classrooms at the end of each wing, and then make a decision about whether we want to build those out on the front end or come back later. Typically, building them out on the front end will save you dollars in the long run because the cost per square foot, while the contractor's there building the entire school, is going to be less than building it out to maximum capacity 4 years from now or 5 or 6 years from now. So that's how we've always kind of staged those projects since I've been here. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir, a little bit it does. Thank you.
So we did plan. That's why it was an alternate. We planned to do that all along.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Phillips.
Yep.
Mr. Mansfield.
So I do have a question. I noticed in the bond language about when it's talking about the schools, and I noticed that it doesn't talk specifically about Liberty Creek, what we're actually borrowing this money for. So I would like to amend the bond to specifically state Liberty Creek.
I'd like to address that real quick. We have bond counsel that's what they do every day. And that's why we hired them, is to help write these resolutions, help prepare these bonds for us. And in fact.
Hang on one second, Commissioner Taylor. I've got a motion for an amendment by Commissioner Jeremy Mansfield to amend the language of the bond resolution to specify Liberty Creek, seconded by Commissioner Mo Taylor. Commissioner Chris Taylor.
I would just ask everybody to consider the fact that people that do this every day for a living wrote this in a manner that is approved by the state, and make sure that we are in compliance with everything that we have to be in. I wouldn't want to change anything. There's not a need to change anything. If they had felt that, they would have made us do it in the beginning.
Hang on, I'm getting a legal clarification as well, Mr. Mansfield.
I can speak to that.
Hang on, you got to come back. You got to come back up here, Ms. Denny.
George Phillips.
Hang on, we'll get, sorry.
George Phillips and Bill
Hang on,
Wright.
hit your microphone.
George Phillips and Bill Wright, who are the bond counsel and the expert, are here, but in short, the more restrictions that you put on a bond issue, the more restrictions you have. If you just say this is for the doors at Liberty Creek and you don't spend it all for the doors at Liberty Creek, you got to give it back. And why would you want to spend all the money that it costs to put together a bond issue? Because you know there's always going to be some other school issue some school problem that will need to be resolved.
Hang on one second, Mr. Long. Wait till your microphone comes on. Thank you.
The other issue is giving it back is costly and a significant issue because you've got 10-year calls on these bonds. So for instance, there's some technology and furniture involved. If we don't need every single penny of that technology and furniture, what's left is going to have to be handled that manner, and it's very costly. We can't use it anywhere else. Not another school anywhere.
Okay, Commissioner Mo Taylor, do you want to speak on the amendment or the main motion?
Yes, sir. I'll speak on the amendment.
Okay.
And I understand what was just said about the money. That we're going to spend money on schools going forward. There's no doubt about that. This is potentially, or probability, this is only for the biggest expense of 2 schools. So is the middle school going to be called something other than Liberty Creek that's coming down the road?
I mean, that would be for a future school board to decide, but I would seriously doubt that it would be anything other than Liberty
So if we
Creek.
limited this bond to Liberty Creek, we're going to have a middle school coming online anyways.
Right, but I think Commissioner Taylor, if I can, Ms. Denon, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think the issue there is the time frame you have of your bond, because we will most likely not build the middle school within the time frame that we have on the current bond, which would then throw it back into arbitrage.
Well, can I make a bet tonight?
No.
Okay.
No. Okay, Commissioner Baker-Ring, are you on the amendment?
I wasn't through, Mr. Chairman.
Well, you made the amendment second, so.
No, on the main motion.
Main motion, okay. Commissioner Foster, you on the amendment? Okay. Commissioner Graves, amendment, or main, okay. Commissioner Sullivan, motion or main? Main, okay.
Mr. Kemp, can we turn this one back off again?
Okay. Commissioner Mo Taylor, are you on the amendment or main motion? Okay. 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 Mr. Mansfield, did you want to add anything else on your amendment?
No, sir, that's
Okay.
fine.
All right, so let me be really clear. The amendment is to change the language of the bond resolution to limit it exclusively to Liberty Creek. So if you vote yes on this amendment, then you're changing the resolution to limit it to exclusively to Liberty Creek. If you vote no, then we keep the bond resolution as it is.
All right, the amendment is on the board. Each commissioner, please record your vote. Twenty-two affirmative votes. Does anyone wish to, 22 votes are in. Does anyone wish to change your vote? With 3 affirmative votes, the amendment fails to carry.
Okay, Mr. Foster. Mr. Foster.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the hopes of dragging this fatally assaulted equine across the finish line, I call for the question.
Okay. All right. That's the best language I've ever heard of that, Mr. Foster. There's a motion made to call the question. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Sullivan. All right, let's vote.
Call for the question is on the board. Each commissioner, please record your vote.
Natural order.
20 votes are entered. 23 votes are entered. Does anyone wish to change your vote? 22 votes are entered. Anyone wish to change your vote? With 17 affirmative votes, question has been approved. We are now on the motion. Mr. Chairman, we ready to vote?
No, that was the main motion.
That was the
Oh, I'm sorry, that was the call of question. I'm sorry. Yeah, now we need to vote on the main motion. Thank you, Mr. Kemp.
We're voting on the resolution 1912-03. The resolution is on the board. Each commissioner, please record your vote.
Ooh, that was.
22 votes are entered. Does anyone wish to change your vote? With 19 affirmative votes, the resolution is approved.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kemp. Mr. Taylor, Commissioner Chris Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Kemp. All right, Resolution 1912-04, accepting a bid from Robert S. Biskin and Company for the construction of New Liberty Creek Elementary and High Schools. I so move.
Motion made by Commissioner Chris Taylor, seconded by Commissioner Foster. Commissioner Mo Taylor, you're in the queue.
I saw the bids, but the detail wasn't that great that was shared with us. Could you know, or could we get sent to us, because I mean, I know it's going to pass, but
Yeah.
the utility costs? I'd
The-
like a breakdown for utility
Yeah,
costs.
I'm sure, Dr. Phillips, we've got the bid documents we can share, right?
And it's kind of go back, and I can't really go back, but was any of that increase for the GO web, for the sewer line?
No. No, it's,
That was captured in the money that we appropriated before.
yeah, no, this was, the sewer's not included in the bids for the school. That's a separate bid.
That's on
The other part
all
we did.
campus.
That's on the county part, the sewer and the road.
The 2.4
Yes, sir.
million and then the 500,000. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
the school, the main difference on the school was Biskin and the other company were really close all the way around, but Biskin gave us about a $2 million break if we gave them both the elementary and the middle school. But when you looked at their bids, throughout, they were pretty much, I mean, they were really close. So you got a good bid, but, to save $2 million, on a project this size is pretty good,
I
pretty
do
good
work
savings.
with both companies. They're both very good
Yeah,
companies.
yeah. Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Mr. Mansfield.
Yes, sir. I would like to do whatever I can to mitigate some of this cost. And again, I stated this during financial management, it wasn't the right time. I looked into the Register of Deeds office in the finance department, and nothing's been filed or purchased regarding the land deals behind the archives building. There's been no deeds filed. What we have done is spent $2,500 on a survey, which leaves $457,500 left over for that. So I would like to move that we reappropriate that $457,500 that's left over and towards the design bid construction cost of the school. And I would like to respectfully just that we request or ask the school board to do the same with the $1 million that was appropriated.
And Mr. Mansfield, I'm going to rule your motion out of order because what we're doing here is, the way that this works is, we either accept or reject the bid from Biskin. This is not what you're talking about would need to go through budget. It would need to go through the school board, but you can't, all we can really do is accept or reject the Biskin bid because they put a good faith bid forward. At this point, it's an up or down vote on whether we approve the bid.
Well, I still want to make a move to reappropriate $457,500 from this not been spent.
And what I'm saying, I mean, you can move it all day, but it's still out of order. It's the wrong process. It's not you'll need to take that to budget. All right, Commissioner Graves.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I'm
sir.
going to vote for this school. I don't know why we ain't going ahead and doing it all. We know how much it's going to cost instead of going phases. The bid is in. But my comment, I don't expect to answer. My comment is my mother. She's 87 years old. And if she got her tax bills, cards, I don't know that. But she did get the bill. Her taxes went up $1,500. She's 87 years old. $1,500. And I mean, that's probably small in the crowd of people who's got commercial businesses. Their taxes just went up. We're paying people to get raises on the tax increase. We give the highway department, that could have been paid up front. It was put out there, put in that for a carrot, I believe. But anyway, why, 400,000? Why wouldn't, they talked about putting it in the budget. We proved it through the committee to go ahead and do that.
Mr. Graves, I'm going to have to, at this point, like, the resolution on the floor is the bid for Biskin on school.
Okay.
So.
I'm talking about the bid.
I would have to say, Mr. Graves, that I could never rule anybody out of order again if I let that continue. And I love
You don't think that's in the bid, my mama's taxes?
I mean, I don't think we can talk about a bid on the school and connect it back to taxes. But I appreciate it. I mean, that's a creative connection.
Yep. That's all over the county like that. Taking people's property. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Graves. I like you got that last little bit in there as you were signing off. All right, Commissioner Mo Taylor.
Yeah, just a simple question that a citizen reached out to me and asked about the bid, or the acceptance of the bid. When we build highways in the state, or state bids are different than our county stuff, we have a drop dead date of completion. The state can fine the contractor so much for every week, month, or day that they go past that drop dead date, what I like to call it. Do we have anything in this?
Yes, sir.
You
Yeah,
know it?
I don't know the specific. I don't know the specifics on
Did I
it.
get those emailed to me so I can pass it on to that citizen?
Sure.
I don't know that they've gotten that. That's awful.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
That's fine.
Okay. All right. No one else in the queue. Let's vote.
Resolutions on the board. Each commissioner, please record your vote. $22 votes are entered. Does anyone wish to change your vote? With 20 affirmative votes, the resolution is approved.
Thank you, Mr. Kemp. Commissioner Chris Taylor.
Yes, sir. 1912-05, approving the three-star economic development education grant in the amount of $50,000 to be used for education and workforce improvement. This is passed through. I so move.
Motion made by Commissioner Chris Taylor, second by Commissioner Ring. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Commissioner Taylor.
Yes, sir. 1912-06, approving $383,839.86 as pass-through funds for state inmate medical reimbursement to the budget of the Sheriff's Office. I so move.
Motion made by Commissioner Chris Taylor, second by Commissioner Jerry Foster. Commissioner Mo Taylor.
Once again, questions that I don't know the answers to that I've been asked. I come here to seek those answers. And over the years, when we sold our hospital and through all that, we got $25 million through the sale proceeds of that hospital, 10 once, 15 another. We also negotiated contracts for medical. And this may be a simple question, I don't want to know, no HIPAA law violations. Are we getting the same discount?
This is, we're getting those discounts. These are state inmates that have to be taken to Vanderbilt or St. Thomas because of medical conditions they have. And once they get there and get certain sorts of care or certain time periods pass, it's usually over $1,000. The state pays us back.
So this, how many times a year do we do this? Because I was asked that question.
Usually the sheriff can probably answer that. It's usually every 2 or 3 months we get a check.
Quarterly?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Taylor. All right. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
1912-07, approving the distribution to volunteer fire department the amount of $138,000 for the fire equipment costs and appropriating or transferring funds. They got together, agreed on what they wanted to use the additional money they had, and worked out themselves. It went through emergency services and came to budget. I so move.
Okay. Motion made by Commissioner Chris Taylor, seconded by Commissioner Jerry Foster. Mr. Tinsley.
I just, I spoke this in committee, and I just wanted to speak it here as well. We have multiple volunteer fire departments across the county. All of them, by most of our regulation, are probably extremely underfunded, and I have a moral hang-up with one of these fire departments taking up a third of this budget.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Tinsley. Mr. Lawing.
One thing, the actual amount, the total was 138, but only 98,628 of it's being distributed tonight. The 138 on the front should actually say 98,628.
Okay.
If you look at your actual details on the page.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lawing. Mr. Hinton.
Anybody in the queue besides me?
Mr. Becker.
Move we adjourn. Merry Christmas.
No. We got to vote. Hang on.
We got to vote on this one still.
Hang on, Mr. Hinton. We got to vote on this.
You sure?
I will note your long-standing,
Would you come back to me when it comes my time again?
Yes, sir.
I'll do that again.
Yes, sir. I will gladly come back to you here in just a minute. Mr. Becker.
So explain to me real quick again how the distribution was determined or calculated?
Mr. Lawing, go ahead.
What happened, Jerry, was we asked them to get together. And what Chief of Number One did was he got all of them together, and they had a wish list they put out. And the wish list came out to like, I think, $212,000 to start with. So they were all kind of sitting there looking at each other, and he was the first one who said, well, we'll do without this item, which took off $4,000. And so they just kind of went around the room and they whittled it down until they got to the 138. What Mr. Tinsley's talking about is there's one department, though, that didn't whittle anything down and got, was it 45,000 or I can't remember the exact. It was a large, it was almost a third of the money went to one department, and the rest went through the other 12. So it,
And this department didn't budge or take off anything.
yeah, it was just one of the things that we noted in EMS to bear in mind in the future, that everybody else agreed and made, concessions, and they didn't necessarily do that. But when we asked them, are you still okay with it, they were all in still agreement that in this instance, they were fine with that one group getting more.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to adjourn.
Already tried that.
What are you waiting on?
That ain't gonna work. I already tried it.
I know.
I was just going to add that one station that's getting a third of that money, it's only for 2 items. It just happens to be that they're 2 really, a lot of the stuff with the fire service is very expensive, and it's just 2 really expensive items that were on their list.
Thank you, Ms. Kruger. Commissioner Mo Taylor. Don't adjourn.
No.
Okay.
I'm going to say there's one thing that you can have a fire department. You can't have a fire department without one thing. Anybody guess?
Water lines.
Water.
Okay. You're just trying to take Mr. Graves' title for the evening, Commissioner Taylor.
Merry Christmas and thank you.
All right, let's vote. It's on the board.
Resolution is on the board. Each commissioner, please record your vote. $21 votes are entered. Anyone not voting, wish to vote, anyone wish to change your vote? With 22 affirmative votes, the resolution is unanimously approved.
Merry Christmas, everyone. Mr. Hinton. We stand adjourned.